We're continuing to track breaking news this morning. A massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake off Russia's east coast has triggered tsunami alerts in dozens of countries, including Canada. In Hawaii, waves of over 1.5 meters high have been detected, though officials say it seems the worst is now over. Tsunami warnings are still in effect in Northern California, and residents of coastal British Columbia are being told to stay away from shorelines and beaches after alerts were issued there last night. Joining us now to track this story is Marianne Domain. Marianne, where do things stand in terms of British Columbia and where the alerts are right now?
Yeah, residents along BC's coast being told to be careful of strong currents. That's a concern right now, and that's why the tsunami watch was upgraded to a tsunami advisory. That took effect last night because of potentially dangerous waves. This map showing you where that advisory is impacting. That is the west and northeast coast of Vancouver Island, central and north coast of BC, and also the greater Victoria area. Now, this area is also broken down into different zones. These are tsunami zones in BC, and you can see just how it breaks down. Right now, the advisory impact zones A through D, so keep that in mind. Now, major flooding is not a concern right now in these parts of British Columbia, but what is a concern, as I mentioned, are those strong currents, and that's why they're telling everyone to stay away from water. That means shorelines, beaches, marinas. You may be interested or curious to see what these waves look like, and officials are saying resist the urge to do that, stay away. In fact, beaches in Tofino have also been closed down as a precaution. Katsu Goda spoke to us earlier this morning. He is an expert in earthquakes, tsunamis, and risk assessments, and he talks about the importance of these types of advisories and warnings to keep communities in places like British Columbia safe.
Well, I think the especially for the remote communities like First Nations, etc., and especially in the isolated community, if they don't get the those kind of alerts and then don't act on it, then I think it's going to be a problem. But at this point, I think everything is in order.
In the meantime, Emergency Info BC telling residents in these impacted areas along BC's coast to keep an eye on the updates in case anything changes.
Now, we're learning that Russia has lifted tsunami alerts in several regions. What else are we watching in different parts of the world?
Yeah, that's the good news. At least the worst may be behind them in some areas of Russia, also in Japan, because we know those tsunami waves first hit those areas, prompting evacuations that impacted millions of people. So let's start in Russia, because we've been showing you these aerial images showing the flooding, the damage to the infrastructure and homes. Residents there were told to move inland, and of course a lot of flooding. But the tsunami alert now canceled, particularly in the areas of Kamchatka Peninsula and Kuril Island. When it comes to Japan, which also lifted its tsunami alerts, they've now been downgraded to an advisory. But they are dealing with waves like this. Strong waves still in place. And like we've been talking about in BC, the advisory is still warning people of the strong currents. So big issue there and still a big concern. Now, in the United States and California, there are still tsunami warnings in place. We've been telling you about Crescent City, California. Big waves also expected there. Some minor flooding has already been reported, but they are warning people to stay away from the water, move inland. That's been the warning no matter where you are. And that was also the warning in Hawaii. They were under a tsunami warning. That has now been downgraded to an advisory because they were initially expecting, really big waves. Waves were big, but not as big as they were initially expecting. So the evacuation order that was in place for residents, particularly in the Oahu area, now canceled. Residents who were told to move to higher ground are now able to return to their homes. Now you can see the tsunami alert levels on your screen, because a tsunami triggers a 3-tier warning system. It first starts with a watch, which essentially says a tsunami is possible, so keep an eye on the changing conditions. And then the advisories, which is the concern around strong currents like we're seeing in British Columbia. And then, of course, Katie, the warning, which is the big tsunami flood waves, which is what many places are hoping not to get, and as we're seeing with the downgrading and what we're hearing from officials in Hawaii, for instance, that the worst is now behind them. Keeping an eye, though, on French Polynesia's Marquesa Island. They are still under a tsunami warning. Waves could be higher than 4 meters. So a serious situation could be unfolding there, and we'll keep an eye on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Marianne.
You're welcome.